Hello everyone and welcome to the video, and today we're going to be talking about the Holy Crucible Knight build. So this build is going to go over some of the best weapons that you can use for a pure holy build, and overall I had a lot of fun with this build and I think it's very good. It's really good at staggering enemies, it's very good at countering anyone that is going to sit behind a shield constantly, and it's also good at just large crowds of enemies in general. So we're going to explain a little bit about why this is, as well as the gear of the build itself. So as you can see here, it does pretty solid damage as I'm killing these giants on screen right now, and after I get done killing him right there, now we're going to take a look at the gear of the build. So for this build specifically, we are using two coated swords. Now the coated swords, I have them plus 10. They are really good for scaling with holy. As you can see, they do a ton of damage. And for the coated swords, their L2 attack is actually the unblockable blade, which goes through shields, I'm pretty sure. I also have the Cipher Pada. I'm not entirely sure if I pronounced that correctly, but it is what it is. I have that just kind of as like a backup weapon. Then we have the Erdtree Seal, since it scales the best with pure faith. For the armor, we have the Crucible Axe helmet, Crucible Axe armor, and the Crucible gauntlets and greaves. For the talismans, we have Flock's Canvas Talisman, Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, Shard of Alexander, which you could actually substitute out, depending on what you want. You can go more defense with the Dragon Crest, Great Shield, or even the Erdtree. It's entirely up to you. For the last one, we have the Sacred Scorpion Charm for a little bit extra holy damage. For our Flask of Wondrous Physic, we have the Thorny Crack Tier and the Holy Shrouding Crack Tier for more holy damage and successive attack power. For the stats of the build, we are level 150. We have 61 Vigor, 30 Mind, 35 Endurance, 16 Strength, 19 Dexterity, 19 Intelligence, 75 Faith, and 14 Arcane. You could optimize this to be a lot better depending on which starter class you chose, and also my stats are boosted by 5 because of my Great Rune. So, for the incantations of the builds, we are going to be running Flame Grant Me Strength, Golden Vow, Wrath of Gold, Aspects of Crucible Tail, Aspects of Crucible Horn, and Erdtree Heal. Now you do have a couple slots after this. You can throw in the next Aspects of Crucible. However, I didn't want to have too many, and overall I really only liked the two Aspects of Crucible, the tail and the horns. Those seem to be a lot better than the fire one, and just because of the fact that we have a lot of holy damage in general, the fire didn't really make sense for the build. But as you can see here, all of this stuff stacks. The Aspects of Crucible, both of them, the horns and the tail, they both do an insane amount of knock-up damage. As you can see here on this Millennia fight, I knock her up completely, 1500 damage, and then I'm able to hit her. So I'm not entirely sure if that does holy damage or physical, but regardless, it scales very well by having more of the Crucible set on. So that's why we have the 4 pieces of the Crucible Knight set, just because you get a lot of extra damage. Overall, I did really enjoy the horns and the tail move just because they do a ton of stagger damage, and they really knock opponents up a lot of times, and they're really just great for most bosses. I mean, even the horns, it knocks up Millennia, it knocks up other Crucible Tree Knights who are very tough to deal with. It knocks up a lot of opponents, so it's very useful, and overall a great incantation to have. We also have the Wrath of Gold, and that one gives you quite the amount of AoE damage. It's over 3,000, and you could even buff it up more than that, but overall this build is pretty solid for all aspects because you get a lot of rapid DPS from your coated swords, you get a lot of AoE, you get a lunge attack with some decent distance, and even the tail has a lot of distance as well. So you can see here I hit Millennia with it and throw her back, and it does, you know, a solid amount of damage. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how to use this build, as well as some of the strengths of this build and the drawbacks of this build. So overall, it's a pretty simple build. You just do the Flame Grant Me Strength, you drink your Flask of Wondrous Physic, and then you hit Golden Vow. However, you could swap out your Flame Grant Me Strength for the Blood Boil Aromatic. I think the Blood Boil Aromatic will actually give you a little bit more damage, but I'm not entirely sure. Just because this is an entirely holy based build, all the damage from this build comes from holy damage, unless of course the Aspects of Crucible, the tail, and the horn, if they do physical damage, then it will actually boost those. But other than that, the coated swords have no physical damage to my knowledge. It's just holy, so you're really not gaining any damage from that. So you could actually substitute out Flame Grant Me Strength for like Black Flame Protect Me if you wanted a little bit more of a defensive option. So as for the downsides of the build, there really is not that many. The only downside I would say would be the somewhat lack of range. I mean, the only range you really have is from the Aspects of Crucible, the tail, and the horn. That's pretty much the only range you have, as well as the coated sword L2 attack. But other than that, I mean, the range is pretty solid even still. So overall, this build is pretty incredible, and I definitely encourage you guys to try it because it was a lot of fun to use, and it's definitely something a lot different than what a lot of people use. So that's pretty much it for today's video. So if you guys enjoyed this build video and you want to see more like it, you can comment down below which ones you want to see next. And make sure to drop a like on the video, as well as you sub to the channel if you enjoyed the build videos, because I make a lot of them. But with that being said, that's pretty much it for today's video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.